to Unit 8 of Introduction to Apologetics. What we're doing here in Unit 8, kind of the midway point through Part 2 of the book, is we are looking at how our apologetics should be appealing to the whole person. Now, here's what we mean by that. It can be easy, or there might be a tendency sometimes in Christian apologetics to only provide rational and logical argumentation for Christian belief. But there's a problem with that, because if we are talking to someone or write an article response to a person and only provide rational and logical argumentation, what we are assuming is that a person is only a thinking thing. Another way of putting it is that we're assuming that people are just brains on a stick, that they are that they're void of any feelings, emotions, hopes, dreams. What the Bible presents us with is not that people are primarily thinking things, but that they are worshiping things. That in being a worshiping thing, we are someone who thinks, who practices logic and critical reasoning in our daily life. We're also someone who has a deep spiritual and emotional life that presents very real implications for the way that we live and the way that we believe. We're also a person with longings, with hopes, with fears, and with anxieties. An effective apologist is going to be someone who can not just give a good logical presentation of belief, of an argument for belief in Christianity. That's good, but an apologist will be able to do more than that. Effective apologetics sometimes require us to go beyond just rational argumentation and to employ other methods of persuading people to the truth of the gospel. That means speaking to their hopes and fears, speaking to the idols that they worship, speaking to them in terms of the emotional and spiritual life, and getting deep into those issues through the use of story, allegory, and so on. This is what we're learning this week in Unit 8. Your assignments for this week are to read Chapter 8 and then take your midterm. So since you have your midterm this week, there will be no quiz on Chapter 8. Your midterm will be covering chapters 1 through 7 of the textbook. So let me encourage you, if you have not already, to download your study guide for this midterm. Give it a good look. Go through it. Write out your answers or responses to the prompts in that study guide. If there are any points that are giving you particular trouble, make sure you go back into your book and give yourself a refreshing on those topics. Go back into the previous units and use the PowerPoint files, the flashcards, the occasional extra resources that I gave you to prepare yourself for that midterm, which once again will be covering chapters 1 through 7. What you're reading now in Chapter 8 will be covered at the end of the semester in your final. So your assignments are to read Chapter 8. Please read it. It's important for understanding the concepts of this text for becoming an effective apologist, and also because you will be tested on it at your final. This chapter is so important, and the importance of it is captured well in this quote from Timothy Keller in the beginning of the chapter. Keller says, "The reality is that every person embraces his or her worldview for a variety of rational, emotional, cultural, and social factors." This reminds me of a time that I was sharing the gospel with a friend of mine who had grown up nominally Christian in a Christian home, who had grown up even participating in church quite frequently, who grew up participating in worship teams and so on. But then after going to college, he decided to major in religious studies, and through his college career, eventually lost his faith. Me and him sat down and talked. I was trying to help him understand what was it that made him lose his faith, because it really bothered him that he couldn't put his finger on it, what it was. We went through all of the different intellectual reasons that he could have lost his faith. And he couldn't really give one argument or logical, intellectual reason for why he lost his faith. Sure, he had some questions about the reliability of the Bible and questions about some of the hard texts that we find throughout Scripture. But it wasn't really that. And it also wasn't just that he wanted to live a rebellious lifestyle, take up the party, college lifestyle, or so on. In fact, he had gone on to be the same good ethical person that he always was. So one thing that I started to ask him was, what was the social culture like in your program, in the classes that you were taking as a religious studies major? And he told me a story of what his college career was like, the classes were like that he took, and being in an atmosphere, an environment that was ironically anti-religious and specifically anti-Christian. Through just being in this environment, it had an influence on him that he didn't even recognize at a purely conscious level. In other words, social and cultural factors played an extremely effective role on his losing his faith, something that he had not acknowledged before, but through our talking about it, he came to agree with me that it might have been his community that caused him to lose his faith. You see, so what I hope that helps you to see is that this chapter is important not just for some theoretical reason, but because what you are learning in this chapter is very relevant, applicable, and connected to what you will be doing in your ministry context. So I hope that you will become someone who can appeal to whole persons for the truth of the gospel and be an effective evangelist. With that said, let's jump in to great work this week in Unit 8.